Hey there, everybody. It's Eric. I wanted to talk a little bit about philosophy, especially as it relates to the philosophy of the ethics of capitalism. And I wanted to talk about specifically one of my friends. Her name is Haley. She has a really good friend, Erica. And she has a son, 5 years old, and she's having a hard time with oppositional defiance and a bunch of other stuff in terms of her son and how she's interacting with him in her everyday life. And I wanted to talk about universality in ethics specifically, and as it pertained to the ethics of parenting and bringing in the ethics of property rights and its absolution fundamentally. Which, when you're talking about ethics and you're making claims of universality, you've got to make sure that no matter what in that ethical system you are working in, that you really are fundamentally spreading ethics all the way from the micro to the macro to say that there are no exceptions, that we are dealing with universal principles of ethics. And so when we understand that property rights are a moral absolute, which means that there are no exceptions to these principles, no exceptions, not one, zero exceptions. So once you accept that, you understand how so much of parenthood is sort of revealed as not being so much on the sunny side of virtue in ethics, which is to say, like for example, is grounding and threatening children with grounding a violation of capitalism? And I mean, it sounds like a really weird question you would never want to ask, like, what in the world does that have to do with this? But is grounding a child an abridgment of their property rights? And yeah, you can't tell another human being that they have to spend time inside something they own, right? Like, they can't ground you, but you're 10 times their size and can physically push them into a room if you so choose. And so because we're not willing to, as a society, universalize ethics with our own children, because we have to understand that it's their room, right? If it's their room, they can leave anytime they want. And anything other than that is a violation of property rights. So getting into that, it's very important to understand how ethics has to be universal, right? So how you arrive at solutions to problems inside that system of ethics, of really working with it, I don't know what particular solutions will emerge, but I can guarantee you that solutions will emerge inside that system of ethics, because it will be universal. And when you understand that there's nothing that you as a parent can't do, that a child can't do to you, when people are treated in an egalitarian and a consultative fashion, they react very well with each other. And the reason why we often have such conflicting relationships with our children in society is because we aren't willing to show that same universality inside the realm of sharing 50% of your chromosomes with another organism, right? So we create these exceptions, unfortunately, still. But when we finally, as families, as societies, when we can finally really universalize ethics, especially the property rights of children, like, parents are still taking their kids' stuff and calling it virtue and something other than stealing their toys. And then the kids start crying. It's like, ah! And the kids are like, oh my gosh, kids are so irrational. No, they're not. They're just, the person that they've been told to love more than anyone in the world is taking their stuff and masking it with unclear language. And so when we understand that we can't violate these principles, that they have to be respected, that they are my children's toys and I cannot take them, and when we understand we can't force them, I mean, if you called it what it was, which is kidnapping, you can't force another person to stay in a particular area. That's kidnapping, but we don't call it that because, of course, euphemism is the root of all evil. So when we finally can really universalize the ethics that we have with children, we can actually begin to arrive at solutions. And what those solutions are, again, don't know. But you will find solutions inside that realm of ethics, because it is universal, and it is egalitarian, and it is consultative, and it is respecting everyone as fundamentally sovereign and individual human beings with their own autonomy and their own capacity as individuals. So when we get there, when we achieve virtue with our children, when we achieve a consistent representation of property rights with our children, then we can finally start to get a society which has theft disappear and which has, oh my god, so much. Once, like, a philosophical society will be so different from what we look at now. I mean, it's because we abridge the property rights of our children and disguise it inside euphemism that we still have problems like theft and taxation. Oh, but I repeat myself. And all these things, right? You know, abridgments of property rights are everywhere. And we wonder why this society isn't yet beautiful. But when we achieve a beautiful world with our children, then the world can finally become beautiful, and we can get rid of war and murder and rape and theft and assault and all these things, because philosophy will finally have worked, which is to say that it has achieved universality among all individual human beings in society, regardless of demographic. It doesn't matter what age they are, or any of these artificial divides, which have nothing to do with personhood or the sense of being of what you are, as opposed to just some demograph or number or whatever it is. You know, so once we get to that philosophical society, it will be beautiful and amazing, and there will be no more taxation or theft. And once we deal with really big forms of theft, we can deal with smaller forms of theft. And we have to understand that we can't steal from our children and pretend it's something other than an abridgment of property rights. You can't take your kids' toys and achieve a solution. You can't achieve a solution through threats and through bribery and through using coercion and threats of abridging property rights. And no, just extend it's like capitalism just needs to encompass all ethics, and then we'll be fine, because there will be no more taxation or war, or you won't have grounding anymore with parents, and there will be no more spanking and circumcision and all of these ridiculous forms of abridgments of what it means to own yourself and own your body and own your property. So anyway, we'll get there, and all it takes is just one generation of extremely well-raised human beings, and then they'll just look at all of the existing institutions and practices which are still not so much on the sunny side of virtue, and they'll just no longer accept them. And the language will be different, and the language will really get across what's actually physically happening in the world, as opposed to the prison of words that we are given by coercive human beings in order to act certain ways. So anyway, philosophy, childhood, respect, a truly consistent application of capitalism, and, in other words, property rights, because I know capitalism can be a deeply manipulated term, unfortunately. So true capitalism, true virtue with our children, true universality and ethics, which are fundamental to a free and peaceful society. So have fun getting there and see what you can accomplish with it, and you will find solutions will be found inside this system of ethics, which works, because it is truly equal, and you will actually achieve what you want as a human being with not only your children, but with other human beings around you. Fantastic stuff. Have a good night, guys.